Thank you, Speaker. I rise to speak on behalf of the Greens, but I recognise my other Greens colleagues will also be speaking to put our strongest opposition on the record of this Roads and Crimes Legislation Amendment Bill 2022. Given what this bill does, it is beyond outrage that we are here having this bill rammed through the chamber, and it is certainly remarkable that this is happening with the backing of the New South Wales Labor Party to the New South Wales Liberals and Nationals' attempts to introduce these horrific anti-protest laws. Yes, it's right. Right now, the New South Wales government, if we were to call a vote based on the numbers that are in this House tonight, do not have the ability to pass this bill through this chamber. It is being rammed through with the backing and support of the New South Wales Labor Party, when, as we heard from the opposition spokesman on this issue, they received a copy of the bill sometime between late last night and today. They received word of the bill sometime last night and saw the bill today. The crossbench got a copy of the bill sometime today, and now here we are at 8 o'clock tonight having the debate. This bill is seeking to criminalise behaviour of the people who are trying to save us and improve our world, who are taking action to address the climate emergency, who are taking to the streets to call for increased nurse-to-patient ratios, who are mobilising in their thousands, calling for Black Lives to Matter and an end to deaths in custody, and who are saying enough is enough, and marching for justice for women and an end to sexual violence and harassment. It is beyond belief that instead of acting to urgently criminalise those who are profiting off the fossil fuels and the destruction of this planet, instead, an urgent bill to end sexual violence isn't coming to this chamber, or an urgent bill to stop black deaths in custody isn't coming to this chamber, or an urgent bill to introduce life-saving nurse-to-patient ratios is not coming to this chamber. Instead, we are here with the New South Wales Liberal and National Party, backed by the New South Wales opposition, ramming through a bill that will criminalise those engaging in peaceful protest who are trying to engage in non-violent direct action to make this government listen to their cries for help at the growing inequality, at the growing climate emergency, and at the outrageous behaviour of governments in their arrogance and failure to listen to the people. Where is the legislation in this chamber for the people who are in positions of power, who know the climate crisis was happening but failed to act? Where is the legislation to hold those account for the untold destruction that climate change will and is unleashing on us? What about the urgent laws to prosecute the police and corrections officer who are responsible for the murders of people as a result of deaths in custody? The Greens will be doing everything that we can right here, right now, in this chamber and across the Parliament and in the community to do what we need to do, which is to prevent these laws from becoming laws. To that end, I will be moving and foreshadow a number of amendments in this chamber to enable action by workers, climate activists, animal welfare activists, and anyone seeking to engage in non-violent, peaceful protest and direct action outside this Parliament or any ministerial office, federal or state, or electorate office to be able to do the same. These amendments have been circulated, and I acknowledge that we are doing this on the fly, have been circulated to the government and to the opposition, as well as the crossbench, and I would hope that at the very least we will see some support from the opposition, and I know that some of the crossbench have indicated their support to be able to improve this horrific piece of legislation before us. Non-violent protest has always been a cornerstone of our democracy. Alongside independent media and free and fair elections, it is in fact one of the characteristics of a functioning democracy. Social change and progress does not happen in parliaments in a vacuum. Social change comes from social movements and civil society demanding change. Without the right to protest, there would have been no suffragette movement. Women would still not have the right to vote or own property. Without the right to protest, it would still be illegal to own slaves and buy and sell human lives. Child labour would still be legal, and being gay would still be a crime. And the Berlin Wall would still be standing, abortion would be a crime, apartheid would still be with us, India would never have won its independence from the British, and there would be no union movement and indeed no Australian Labor Party. So what a disgrace and a disappointment it is to see that here today the New South Wales Labor Party are not standing in solidarity with those who are concerned about the crackdown on peaceful protest, but instead are doing the Liberal National Government's bidding by coming in here and helping them to ram this bill through. People do not protest because they find it fun. They don't sit on roads, block traffic, or lock themselves to machinery because they've got nothing better to do. Most of the time, it's pretty uncomfortable, pretty dangerous, pretty dusty, pretty thirsty, pretty exhausting, and a little bit bloody petrifying when any other methods haven't worked and you have to engage in non-violent direct action to be heard. How many online petitions have all of the members of this place received on climate change? How many IPCC reports have we had over years? And how much action has this government taken to close the polluting coal mines that are causing the climate emergency? Most protest movements had at one time or another stood on the streets and blocked traffic. That's what a protest is: the Community Action for Rainbow Rights, the Marriage Equality Campaign, the Women's Marches, Black Lives Matter, Invasions Day protests, historic walks over the Harbour Bridge, the huge no-war protests against the Vietnam and Iraq wars, International Women's Day, May Day parades. All of these historic movements have taken to the streets and have disrupted traffic. They've often blocked railway stations or other significant public transport hubs just by their sheer scale and size. Asking politely or just waiting for handouts from those in power to make our society more sustainable and more equal just does not work. People turn to protest because they care about the world, because they believe in collective power and they want to see change. The Greens stand with them in those actions. We know that communities out there lead and this Parliament follows. And tonight this Parliament does not like that power imbalance, and so they are seeking to shut those collective voices down. People have been desperately calling for climate action for decades now. And despite the rhetoric from this government, emissions keep going up, new coal mines keep being approved, and we remain one of the biggest exporters of fossil fuels in the world. All this while, people are losing their homes, their livelihoods, even their lives to the most catastrophic extreme weather events ever recorded. And people are supposed to just sit there, take it in, while everything precious around them is destroyed by floods or bushfires or wildfires or sea level rises, and hope that the government one day will respond to their polite letter? I don't think so. We should instead be in this chamber passing motions of thanks and appreciation to the likes of the non-violent direct action activists like Extinction Rebellion, Frontline Action on Coal, the Bentley Blockade, the Knitting Nanas, the Galilee Blockade, the Lock the Gate folks, and the Student Strikes for Climate. There are still so many problems that humanity needs to solve, and we need to be able to engage in non-violent direct action and protest to be able to do it. People are scared of what the future holds, they are desperate, and they are sick and tired of asking politely and not being heard. And we are in a race against time. This is what we need more of, more action. Not a bill that is concerned with criminalising the behaviour of the people who are trying to make us realise the level of the growing crises we face in this state and across the globe. If I may, Speaker, just ask for a brief extension of time so I can speak to the amendments as well. That would be appreciated.
The question is, the member for Newtown's time is extended. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. I think
Thank you, Speaker.
The ayes have it.
Not only is this bill an assault on our democracy, it's also poorly thought through and will have profound unintended consequences. I note that the member for Swansea asked the Attorney-General to provide assurances in relation to what he viewed would be done in relation to not stopping climate actions or other kind of protests. The reality is that it's not the Attorney-General making these decisions on the ground. If it was the Attorney-General, with the greatest respect to the Attorney-General, I would feel much more comfortable about these laws. But it's not the Attorney-General making these decisions. It will be the New South Wales Police. And we know how the New South Wales Police behave when it comes to protest in this state. We know their actions and their behaviours. And we know that it's not in the interests of the people that are campaigning on the street, and it's not in the interests of community protection. So Schedule 1 seems to suggest that there's an offence or a penalty of up to $22,000 or 2 years imprisonment, or both, if a person enters or remains on, climbs, jumps from, or otherwise trespasses on a major road prescribed by regulations if the conduct seriously disrupts or obstructs vehicles or pedestrians attempting to use the road. So there go the street parties, the laneway parties that the community have come together and spontaneously connected over the years. I'd probably be now in prison. I'm sure some members of the other side would be very pleased about that, for organising a civil disobedience, for climate action on King Street as the local member. Pedestrians are blocked and obstructed all the time, because when you're pushing a pram or a wheelchair, all of a sudden the footpath is no longer compliant with the accessibility standards. That is much more of a concern to the majority of people in this community than the obstruction or disruption of a footpath or a road because of a protest action. Most of the time, people standing on the sidewalk while the protest is happening are cheering or honking their horns in the car in enthusiastic support of the climate action or the No War action or the Black Lives Matter campaign. As for Schedule 2, not only does it propose sending people to jail or fining them for disrupting a major facility like a port or a rail station, but they cannot even remain near the facility if it causes any disruption. I don't know about you, but Schedule 2, Mr. Speaker, seems to suggest that there's a provision that you can also be sent to jail for 2 years or cop a $22,000 fine for disrupting a railway station or public transport facility. Now, I think we could refer to that as the Minister Elliott clause, because the main person that's been disrupting our public transport system over the last month in this state has been Minister Elliott, the so-called Minister for Transport. So where are we at? The Greens are going to move some amendments to this bill in this chamber here, and I want to acknowledge my colleague Abigail Boyd in the other place, who has courage of this and has been moving to disallow the outrageous attempts through regulation to insert a whole lot of bridges and other tunnels and other facilities into these provisions over the last few days. I want to acknowledge also that it's important to talk through what those amendments are, and I want to give the chance for members to hear that now. The Greens will be moving 4 sets of amendments, so 2 amendments in each, which I'll speak to in more detail, but will address the need to recognise that if everyone's committed to the fact that these laws are not about stopping people from engaging in non-violent, peaceful protest, if we recognise, as the Attorney-General said, that, lawful protest or legitimate protest is all right. I question the definition, because in actual fact, if you don't need approval to engage in a protest. The right to the freedom of assembly, to the freedom of association, to the freedom of protest is actually one that doesn't require the Attorney-General or a police Form 1 or anyone to be able to approve. It is actually a right that you have as a citizen. That said, we will be moving 4 amendments. The first will be to include climate action as a reasonable excuse under these provisions. The second will be in relation to exemptions from the offence for industrial action, which I recognise that the New South Wales Labor Party has already got in some part to the bill. Our concern is around the definition of industrial action, but it does not actually capture all of the details around workers being able to engage in actions at their workplace, and so therefore we want to broaden that slightly to include workers as well as workers engaging with actions at premises that are owned by their employer as well as their workplace. And then the third set of amendments will be in relation to animal facilities and recognising the need to be able to engage in peaceful, non-violent direct action at animal facilities. And the final one will make sure that it doesn't apply to any political officers or indeed the New South Wales Parliament. People will know that tomorrow the nurses and midwives intend to strike just outside this building here, and as we see on a regular basis, there are actions and strikes that occur, public protests that occur just outside this building, and if anyone has tried to enter the building when these are happening, the footpath is often disrupted. The road is often disrupted. Now, we think that it is critical for our democracy that there is definitely a carve-out to allow for the ability for people to engage outside of our democratic institutions, whether it be a minister's office, an electorate office, or the New South Wales Parliament, to make sure that they are able to express their views to the people who are making laws that impact on them. And finally, I'd just like to ask, why are we here doing this now? Well, it's not happening just in this state, but it's happening around the country. And at any day now, there will be a federal election. So what's the real politics of this? Why the urgency now? Why is it so urgent to do this but not introduce urgent rental reforms for the floods happening in the northern of New South Wales? Why is it more urgent than deaths in custody? Well, maybe it's because Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese are actually on quite a unity ticket where they would prefer that we just don't talk about coal mines or climate change between now and the federal election. Maybe what they're doing is running a protection racket for them. And so I would say that the Greens oppose this bill, we will move amendments, and we would really hope that we will see the government do more and not less when it comes to protecting the right to protest.